This podcast contains excerpts from New Soul Radio shows. For the full listening experience with music, visit newsoulradio.com. That's NUSOL radio.com. This is Soulsay.
The following thoughts and opinions do not represent New Soul Radio, Soulsay and Company, or any of our affiliates, advertisers, or sponsors.
You're listening to Gems and Gems with Kim Brio on newsoulradio.com.
WSOL New Soul Radio. This is Kim Brio, and of course you are listening to Gems and Jams, where we drop these life gems and listen to these feel-good jams. Now, last Thursday, I gave you a preview and I told you guys Whit would be here, and Whit is here. And I am so excited to have Whit Devereaux in the building with me today. Now, I was going to say if you're from Chicago, but Whitney has been doing this nationally for quite some time. So this is not just a Chicago thing. You have likely run into Whitney, looked at her book, seen her mention the Not By My Own community. And I wanted to introduce you guys to Whitney, and we're actually going to even tell you a little bit of our personal connection before we started doing any of this public media stuff. So Whitney, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kim, for having me. I am so excited and glad to see you for sure.
And I'm if I keep calling you Whitney, they're like, who is Whitney? I'm sorry, y'all. That's because we know each other in real life. So I'm gonna be training myself to Whit. Quick note, guys, because you're not going to be able to ignore it throughout the entire interview. Me and Whitney are friends from high school. We were in our same little friend circle, and it is crazy to see each other now, and everything that we've been doing. We've been supporting each other from afar. But then even just, watching Whitney, you guys know, and she's got high schoolers now. And I'm like, oh my God, when did we grow up? When did this happen?
Time is flying for real.
Time is flying. So let's do this. Whit, I want you to tell them in your own words a little bit about who you are and why you started your journey.
Absolutely. So as Kim has said very candidly, my name is Whitney, but I use the pseudonym Whit Devereaux because I am an author. I'm actually an award-winning author of Not By My Own. And then I have 3 other books, including children's books. I have one that's coming out at the end of this month as well, which we can get into a little bit later. But I'm also a certified domestic violence advocate. That comes from my experience being a survivor of domestic violence. So because I had that experience, I wanted to make sure that I got training so that I could help other people to get access to healing and to freedom the same way that I did. So it started out with me writing books. And then people, after reading the books, they're like, hey, we need more help. I have a friend, I have a cousin, I have a brother, sister, mother, whoever that's being abused. How can I help? So then that's when I created the nonprofit, Not By My Own Community, Inc. And we help survivors of domestic violence with different resources that they need to get back on their feet once they get out of the abusive relationship.
I love what you're doing. And I love that this was built out of a place of you helping people in a way that you felt that you wish you had that help. If that makes sense. You didn't form this to quote unquote build a business. You formed this to make a difference. Now, talk to me a little bit. And we're gonna kind of jump around a little bit, you guys, because we kind of, before we, hopped into the show, we talked about some of the things we're gonna cover. But talk to me a little bit about, take me to that point before your first book. Take me to that point before you wrote your book. And when you even got the idea to write a book, what was that journey like and how did that flourish? Because the journey has been ongoing. People, they're being introduced to you, but we know that you've been doing this for some time. So what did that journey look like at the beginning?
For sure. So As a child, I used to write different short stories and poems. I always tell people that writing is the outlet to my soul. I was, as a young girl, pretty shy. So I used to hide behind friends who were more outgoing. We actually have a mutual friend that I would hide behind. And she gave me a book, actually. And inside of it, she wrote, "When you become the next Maya Angelou, I want you to make sure you shout me out." She believed in the dream because she knew my experience as a young girl who had been molested, and how writing helped me to just cope and really come out of that shell. Because when I started writing, we would have to read in class different short stories, and people would get so excited. They couldn't wait for me to read what I had written. And so I would write all types of things, poems, short stories for Grandparents' Day, creepy stories, because I like things that are scary. So sometimes I would write things like that. But it really started from a young age. And actually, when I graduated from high school, I was going to go to Columbia College. That was my dream, was to go there for journalism. I had it all mapped out. I was actually going to have a magazine, and it was going to be downtown, just like Ebony, Ebony and Jet down there. But when I was in high school, my senior year, like that entryway before college, the little summer break, I got pregnant with my oldest daughter. So my dream of Columbia only happened for the first semester. And I had to get up out of there because, one, my parents are like, "You're pregnant. You need to go get a job that you can actually, really
Support a family."
Yeah, because back then, like my father was a postal worker for like 44 years. They were used to jobs that were more secure and not the creative way. So they're like, either you need to be a teacher or a nurse, something that's more solid.
And be there for 30 years. That's the goal.
Yes, and retire, And I listened, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I was always like, I still like to write. So some of the poems that I wrote when I was between 17 to 19 are actually inside of my book, not by my own, because it was chronicling my experience with teenage pregnancy, depression, and even just how I was in that abusive relationship with my daughter's father. So the writing started there, but I didn't publish the book until I was almost 30. It took over 10 years for me to finally write the book.
Yeah. Wow. Now that's a whole word right there too. There's so many things that I kind of want to touch on and unpack in that, because the first thing I want to say, because we've said we went to high school together, right? The first thing I want to say to the people, which is interesting, unless you were close to you and you shared that, like with our mutual friend, and we, of course, we know who that is, and I'm not gonna say her name on air because I don't know what she's trying to do, or if she had, does she have a stage name? Can we shout her out? but unless you were really close, people didn't know that you were dealing with depression and that sort of thing. And the funny thing, that as you tell that story, what I want people to understand from the other side of it, you were always the person in the room with the biggest personality. You were telling the jokes, you were laughing, you were having everybody, you were the life of the party, even when there wasn't a party. We could literally just be at the park. Right. Me, you already know the people that was there. I'm not gonna say the names, so they're gonna be like, don't be shouting me out on air. But we would be at the park or in one of our driveways or something. But you were always the life of the party. And now, as an adult, as I look back, and I'm like, this was the girl that was depressed. There was no way at that point in time that you could have paid me. If someone had came and said Whitney is depressed, I'd have been like, nah, G, you tripping. Not like, nah, maybe me, but no, not like. So it's very funny as I talk about this, and we say this all the time. A lot of times the people with the deepest depressions or anxieties and that sort of thing are the people with the biggest personalities. Tell me a little bit about, in your opinion, why you think it kind of operates like that.
Well, for me, as I shared off air, like laughter for me was a big coping tool. One of my favorite comedians of all time, Robin Williams, he was depressed, actually completed suicide. And the whole time we didn't know it, because it brings us joy to help other people. And that could be through laughter. So for me, like my family, we're big jokesters. My favorite uncle, Uncle Manuel, he was always joking. Like, I don't care what was going on. It could be something really devastating, but we gonna find a way to laugh from that devastation. So I just always use laughter as like a coping tool, but also a way to just break the ice. I remember when I was like in 4th grade, I had went to a new school and I hadn't talked for like the first 6 months because I was just so nervous. And one time this boy was talking about the Fresh Prince episode. I forget which one it was. He was trying to act it out like, oh, this had happened. I'm like, no, this ain't how it happened. This how it happened. I acted out. He was like, you watched that? I'm like, yeah. It's like, why you been quiet so long? And it's just really because I was shy. I was scared. I was insecure. I had endured trauma at an early age. I was 5 when I was molested by a family member. And at that point, I hadn't really talked about it. So It was just like, you become self-conscious because
before you even understand why.
Right. Like before that happened to me, I was like pretty outgoing. But when that happened, it just really changed who I was and how I acted. Right. Yeah. So for me, I was depressed, but I held it together in a way where it seemed as though I was happy. Everything was fine. And I think a lot of times people do that because they don't want to let people in. They don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And when you tell people that you're depressed, just like you said, well, you don't look like it,
Right. No, you're not.
Look a certain way. That's what we think because we didn't know.
Yeah.
But now with more education and information, you realize that depression can manifest in so many different ways. And sometimes it is those people with the biggest personalities who want to make sure everybody else is taken care of that are suffering.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because as I think about, and I want people as they listen to this interview, put yourself back in high school and just kind of think about yourself and your friends and the people you were around. Because even as I hear you say that, and I think about the things that I didn't understand that you were struggling with, there were so many things that, we've been transparent throughout the years. And there were some things that happened to me my senior year. My senior year of high school, I was raped. And all of a sudden, like halfway through the last semester of school, Kim just freaking disappeared.
Yeah.
Just didn't come to school no more. And people had no idea what it was, but I still, just like you, held it together. Everything's fine. I'm okay. You know what I mean? Like, you still hold it together, but you never know what people are carrying under the surface. You never, ever know. And it's just, as I think about me and you in high school, we both had different types of personalities, big personalities, but we both had huge personalities. And those big personalities was hiding some some pain and some trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
No idea. When that happened to you, we all were just like, our friend group, like, do you know what happened to Kim? Is she okay? So, I appreciate the fact that you shared that with us later. I'm sorry that happened to you, but everything that I've gone through, I realized I can use that to help somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't know that was going on, but I'm sure people who have heard that now are blessed by the fact that you are still moving forward in life and able to thrive beyond that, things of that nature. So
and
for
likewise.
Me, right. It's like, I have to keep going. It's not like I'm ignoring the pain. I'm a big advocate on mental health. So definitely dealing with the mental health piece of it. But I had to learn, like, this has happened and it's not going to take me out, right? I survived,
Exactly.
and better things can come from this.
And the other part of it, and we're going to go to a break in a second, but the other part of it is when you do have a personality like you have, people look up to you. And you kind of want to make sure that you, like you said, like the Robin Williams thing, you want to keep them laughing. You want to keep them happy. You want to keep them having that, I'm going to call it the wit effect, because you are a one and only like there. I'm going to call it the wit effect. Like the funny part is, you're so buttoned up and together. And I'm like, they don't even know she a whole fool. Like,
I love a good laugh, for real. Like when people really get to know me, they get to see that side. But it took a while for me to get to the space of just really being open, because even now I use the social media for laughter, education, resources, but even transparency. If I'm having a tough day, Holy Spirit will tell me, hey, share this. And then somebody will say, oh, I needed to hear that.
I needed to hear that and needed to know I wasn't alone.
Yes.
And that of all people, Whit Devereaux can understand.
Yes. Because I'm just like y'all, for real.
Exactly. No, and I know exactly what you mean and exactly where you're coming from. I'm so excited we're having this conversation. We're about to pay some bills real quick. And when we come back, I want us to talk a little bit more about the book, the first book in particular. And then I want to talk about what that journey looked like when it actually started to take fruition. Because for you, when you started, it's almost like you started and then you didn't stop. So I want to hear about that part of the journey. So you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you missed any of this episode, understand that you can get the full episode on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/SoulSeico, SOLSEICO. We'll be back. Supporters of this show can join us on Patreon, where for only $5 a month, you can access all past shows and exclusive content. Join now at patreon.com/SoulSeico. That's patreon.com/SOLSEICO. Want to answer one of our questions? Or have a song or artist request? Or do you just want to leave us some feedback? Call the New Soul Radio voicemail at 312-945-6376. That's 312-945-6376. Remember, we may play your message on air. WSOL New Soul Radio. This is Kim Brio, and you are still tuned into Gems and Jams. Thank you so much for being here, where we drop these life gems and listen to these feel-good jams. And I am so excited. I have Whit Devereaux here today, and we have been touching on so much, you guys. We've touched on both the personal and professional side of what she does. We've shared that we went to high school together, and we shared kind of how some of those experiences of the people that we knew before what you guys know as the public us. We kind of shared a little bit about how those people came to be, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where I want to hop back in. And you said something really important when we were talking before break. You said that your book, you started writing it. First of all, you have pieces of poetry in your book from when you were 17, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But you didn't publish it until you were 30.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that time frame, because that decade plus of, I want to know what that looked like for you, what that felt like for you. I can imagine that you struggled back and forth with the day job, looking for that dream job, like we talked about, that our parents talk about, where you're going to retire after 30 years, and fighting kind of what's inside of you. Talk to me a little bit about that point in time before you pulled the trigger on that thing and got started.
Absolutely. So I did go to Columbia College for one semester, couldn't pay, and I was pregnant, had to go. So I'm like, okay, Lord, what can I do? I do need to get some type of trade or something. So I went home for a bit. Then I ended up moving to DeKalb. in DeKalb, they had a lot of resources for single moms, parents that were in college in general. It was just a lot more resources that were readily available than versus being in Cook County. So when I got out there, I was able to go to a junior college, Northwestern Business College, which was in Naperville, but I used to travel back and forth. And I was there for paralegal studies. So I love research. Even to this day, like, research excites me. Sometimes people call me a data guru because if I don't know the answer, I'm going to look it up. And I actually really enjoyed, once I got into the legal field and I was acting as a paralegal, which is basically a fancy term for like a legal secretary or legal assistant. We're responsible for making sure that the attorney is together and prepared. We do all the contracts, all of the petitions and the orders and all of that. I still utilize that to this day, though. So when I need to use it, either for myself, because that's a whole nother story, but we'll get there, or if I'm representing one of my clients or mentees or reviewing contracts. But I got the associate's degree in that. Meanwhile, I had gotten to a different abusive relationship. And the first one was more physical. Once I got out of that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to date for a while. The second one was more emotional
and mental.
Oh my goodness. The psychological abuse for me and some of the other survivors I talked
worse.
to. Worse.
Way worse.
Oh my goodness. Because physically, those things heal, unless it's something that's just permanent. However, the damage that you have to undo psychologically, because you start to believe what the person is telling you about yourself. No one will ever want you. You're stupid. Everything is your fault.
Yep.
Just the list goes on. You start to believe those lies. So I had to do a lot of healing work in between that. But once I got in that relationship, I didn't know it was abusive because there was no physical.
That's what I was going to say. That's the thing about the psychological and the mental and emotional abuse. Before you even get to a point of having to heal it, you have to recognize that it's there. And that's so much harder because you can see a black eye. You know when he hit you, but a lot of times you don't know until years later. You can look back on relationships and be like, yo, that was really not a healthy, that was a very manipulative, or that was a very whichever relationship. And sometimes we don't even know to address it before we can fix it.
Exactly. I had no idea. And I was in that relationship for 5 years, off and on, off and on. Towards the end of our relationship is when I had my second daughter. So now I have 2 children. I have a degree, but I'm like, okay. I also, in between that time, went and got another degree because I was like, the associates is cool, but I really want to help people on a deeper level. So then I went to National Louis University, got a degree in applied behavioral science, which basically just means like figuring out why people do the things they do and how to interact with them better. That degree, obviously, you can use for everything.
And obviously has everything to do with what you're doing now.
I help so many people because of the training that I got from that. So education is important. I understand what my family was trying to say, like having something solid, but the dream didn't die. I kept writing, either in that poem book my friend gave me, or sometimes just on a notebook or journal style, Dear Diary type style. But for a period of time when I got out of that second abusive relationship, it was like writer's block. I had no desire to write. I didn't know how to really get the thoughts out. I was just like, the depression was really heavy at that point, and it was just like a fog. I remember going to church during that time, and one of my friends, she's like, oh my goodness, you just look so weary. Like, I hadn't combed my hair. I just knew I needed to be in the building. How I got up is how I went to church. And so through that process, I started attending this domestic violence ministry at the church I was going to at the time. And that's when I started realizing, oh, this is an abusive relationship. We talked about the power and control wheel and how power and control and manipulation is at the center of all of it. And through that, we had to do different writing exercises. I remember we even had like a vision board that we had to create. And I would hide the vision board whenever my then boyfriend came over because he was abusive and I didn't want him to know that on my vision board was me coming out. I'm like, that's between me and the Lord and the people that I have within my safety plan. So I used that vision board to get out of the relationship. So once I was finally out, I'm like, I want to write still. At this point, I've been a director of social services and nursing homes and intermediate care facilities. I'm like, I like helping these people, but like, I want to write my book. So in November 2016, I joined this challenge called National Novel Writing Month. They call it NaNoWriMo.
Yeah.
50K words was the challenge. So I'm like, okay, every day I'm taking a power hour. I'm going to write. I don't care what's going on. When the calendar goes off with that alarm saying write for an hour, I wrote for an hour. And by the end of the month of November, I had met the 50K goal. And that was the book. That was the manuscript for Not By My Own. I was like, okay, now I need to publish it. And that's a whole journey in itself, for real.
Right.
Yeah.
But hold on, pause there before you get to now I have to publish it. Can I ask you a question? Yeah. After you wrote the book and your 30 days, did you sit back and you was like, I wrote a book, bro? Like, did you have a moment of, I gotta let this sink in. This is an entire book. Did you have that moment, or were you like, oh, I was always supposed to do this, so finally?
Oh no, I was like so happy, proud, over the moon. I remember making a Facebook status actually because I made it literally by midnight by entering the 50K words. And it says, congratulations, NaNoWriMo, you did it. And I posted that because I was like, everybody needs to know, like, if you want to do this, you can. Yeah. There's a challenge that will help you. They had study groups and
all kind of stuff. Yeah, Facebook groups and all kind of stuff. Yeah.
It really helped me because I was determined. I was like, okay, I have a story that I know can help other people. And I only really had the idea to write the one book. All these other books, that's something to do with the Lord. He didn't.
Oh, we gonna get into that because this post that journey, I watched from afar, and the Lord just took you, and you was like, I guess I'm gonna just go where He take me. Like you didn't plan any of that.
No, I had nothing to do with that. I was enjoying my job. I had worked as a case manager for an insurance company downtown. And I loved it. I felt comfortable. I was able to work from home, be available to my children. I wrote the book, and it was just so much support that I didn't have time to work. Because now people want you to come and speak, or they want you to teach the book or help them. So it just really took a life of its own, and I didn't have time to work my regular job anymore.
How did that make you feel? Was that, like, real talk, and this is the point that I was excited to get to, right? Because like I just said a moment ago, watching from the outside, right? You see it happen, you like, okay, Whit about to write a book. Okay, Whit wrote a book. Okay. And then it was just a very rapid pace of growth that it was like, Whit has a pen name, Whit has a website, Whit's doing PR. Wait. Like,
like that, for real.
It literally was like, and it's from the outside looking in, there's no way you could have planned it. Those all had to be things that just God did. So talk to me a little bit about after you wrote the book, you're like, yeah, I'm going to self-publish. Okay. So like you said, you're like, I didn't really think that many people were going to read it, but talk to me about when it took off and what that looked and felt like.
Yeah, that was amazing. So I actually utilized a company that's public. They did everything for me, but I get to keep all the royalty. So I don't have a traditional publishing contract where they just pay you out in one lump sum or something like that. I wanted to make sure that any money I got from my books was mine to keep. But I didn't have the time to do any copyright or any of that. So that company, once I actually finished with them, started to send me clients. That's where the PR thing came from.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
They saw how I was marketing my book and was like, you did such a great job, because every time someone would get a book from me, I'm publicly thanking them, tagging them, I had Rafflecopter, it no longer exists, but they used to do campaigns. So if you had a major announcement, you can meet a certain number of people to sign. And then on the day of your launch, everybody at the same time is posting about it because they already gave permission for Facebook and Twitter to post.
To auto post.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It's so cool. And that really got the word spread, because every time you see me thanking people and they're like, oh, well, let me see what it's about. Then you got people coming back, writing reviews. Let me share that review. And so after a while, it was just like, wow, like I would literally sit and cry, just thanking God, like Lord, you told me to write this.
Oh my God.
Yes. I was like, people are buying the book. There was one story that actually brought me to tears. It was during the pandemic, actually. So right before COVID hit, I had did an event and this father came to me. I was at a church vending. He's like, I have a daughter who really, she doesn't listen to me. You know how you kids are, but she's in an unhealthy relationship and I don't know what to do. Which one of your books is going to help her? I was like, listen, take Not By My Own. Just let her know, hey, I got something for you to read. Don't even tell her what it's about.
Just give her the book.
Give her the book. Just give her this as this is the resource. This is the tool. So I met him pre-COVID. During the pandemic, she emailed me and she said, my father recently passed. And I could not understand why he gave me this book until I read it. And like minutes into it, she's just crying. She's like, this is me. This is my story. It's like, I just want to thank you for meeting with my dad that day and giving me this book. And I'm talking about tears. I'm like, I remember her daddy.
I'm just sitting here because I'm trying not to tear up now because it's like, oh my God. Like,
I was so touched by that because, well, Kim, I was very close to my father.
Yes. Yes.
And his relationship and mine is intertwined into Not By My Own. And I just understand the importance of that father-daughter bond. Not that any other bond doesn't matter, but
there's a special
thing.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand it till his passing. So it was like, okay, this wasn't done in vain. I was so grateful that she came back. And it was stories like that that just kept me writing. It kept me going on those days where maybe I just needed a little encouragement myself. Someone would inbox me or tag me or whatever the case is. Call me, text me, let me know, hey, I read your blog or I read your book or I gave it to a coworker or I gave it to a daughter. I've had men reach out to me as well, which I always want to let people know, like victims of abuse, it doesn't discriminate.
It does not have a gender.
Anybody, okay, and have it happen. It doesn't matter what type of job you have, because some of my mentees, I have actresses, I have nurses, I have teachers, I have dog walkers, like every type of
people you would not think of. Yeah.
And we all have that in common and we all survived and got out of it. But I never, if I had 1 versus 100 orders, I celebrated each one like it was the biggest order ever.
Yeah.
Because I was always taught being grateful makes room for more. So I never credit, oh, I just made 1 sale. No, I made
a sale.
Supporting me. This is not something little. People don't have to.
Yeah.
Take that lightly at all.
Now, how one more question, and then we're going to go to a break, and then we're going to come back. But I want to know, when you started receiving all of the attention and that sort of thing, did that create an anxiety? Did it create a pressure for you? Or were you fully equipped to just be like, oh, this is what I was waiting on. This is cool. Like, what was that like for you stepping into that new level without necessarily being prepared for it, so to say? Because you couldn't prepare for it because you ain't know it was coming. So
Right. That's
was that stressful?
You know, anxiety, depression, those have always been in the background. For me personally, depression, not so much now, because I know when it's coming on and how to avoid it. Anxiety is a much different beast.
Whew.
And it can just come out of nowhere. So for me, when I know that I'm going to an event, I try to make sure that I prepare. And my preparation is a little different.
That's what I was just about to say. What does your preparation look like?
So it's like I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, you told me to go here. Whoever needs this book, or some, I have different products as well, T-shirts, things like that. So whoever needs my products or services, send them to me, send them to my table. And then I actually feed off of the energy and the excitement that people come to the table with. It doesn't have that negative effect on me where I'm like, oh my God, it's too much.
It's too much.
When I leave from there, I'm totally depleted.
You're drained.
It's just so much. Those vending events, or even the other type of events where you may be speaking and then selling a product, I have to make sure I do self-care after, especially if I'm talking about my testimony. Because recalling it doesn't necessarily hurt, but it just takes a lot.
And it takes you back there. It takes a part of you back there.
Yeah. So I make sure to prepare with prayer. Then I feed off the energy while I'm there. I'm thankful. I'm grateful that they're even coming to engage with me. I'm always surprised when people are like, oh, I knew it was you. Like, for real, y'all know who I am?
Me?
Especially when I have my locks and I used to wear the wrap. Like, oh, I know it's you because of your locks and your wrap.
Take New Soul Radio with you wherever you go. Download the New Soul Radio app in the Google Play or Apple App Store by searching New Soul Radio. That's NUSOL Radio. If you have any tips to host your own radio show, hit us up at teamsose.com and drop your info. That's teamsose.com.
SOLSEI. Soul Say. Imagine that this radio spot is about your business.
It's easier than you think.
Text 630-465-5742 to get started. That's 630-465-5742.
So, Whit, I know that you mentioned you have quite a few books and another one coming. So talk to me a little bit about, first of all, what the other books were and then how they came about, because you fell into the first one. So talk to me a little bit about how all the rest of the books came and the one that's about to come out now, teaser.
Yes. So the first book, Not By My Own, came out June 2017. So I finished the challenge November 2016. And I wanted to make sure that book came out for my birthday month, which is June 1st to be exact. So after I published that book, in the midst of me publishing that, someone else had contacted me about doing an anthology, which for people who don't know what that is, it's like one book, multiple authors, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul books that I used to love.
Exactly.
Yes. And so in July 2017, my anthology came out. So I had June 2017, Not By My Own. July 2017 was Unraveling the Layers, Memoirs of a Wounded Soul. That had short stories in there, poems. I talked about, again, of course, overcoming teenage pregnancy and abuse. And then I also talked about some of my upbringing with my grandmother, who back in my high school days, I used to have like the cheerleading team, laughing a lot about. which now I realize it was a lot of trauma. But back then, we
We were
always
just laughing at it.
period. Because my grandma, she was a real life Medea. Like
A
she was
whole handful, girl.
for real. Period. So I talked about that, and also how she, even in the midst of her trauma, introduced me to God, because I was going to church with her. And in the book, I would say, I always thought that you were supposed to raise hell on Saturday, because that's what they call what she was doing, raising hell.
Right.
Made sure you was in church on Sunday. So my concept of the Lord was a little skewed, but I know we needed Jesus because we was there every Sunday.
At least you had that foundation, but you was like, as far as outside of Sunday, the job is we raise hell around here.
Yeah, that's what it is. I used to be like, Uncle, we called her Booney. What is Booney doing? And he say, oh, she's just in there raising hell. But it was really her just like getting drunk, cussing everybody out. And that really shaped me in a lot of ways. Like even how later on in life, I used alcohol to cope, especially in college.
Yes, I was just going to say, as an adult now, and you look back at those things, do you think that she was coping with traumas that she hadn't faced, or?
Absolutely. And some underlying mental illness. Okay. She ended up passing away from complications related to dementia.
Okay.
However, the behavior that she had was more in alignment with somebody who may have had like a bipolar disorder, which in my family is pretty prevalent. So that was July 2017. Then I was approached by another group of people, this different group entirely, who were all teenage moms, now success. So teenage moms turned into success stories. So we wrote a book called There's a Jewel in You, Volume 3, because they had 4 volumes. I'm in Volume 3. There's a Jewel in You, Volume 3 was about overcoming teenage pregnancy, because we didn't want people to feel like with the stigma that they could never be anything. Like my chapter is your life is over, but God. Because when I told my family I was pregnant, that was the reaction. Your life is over. I'm like, I'm determined. My life not gonna be over. Like I'm gonna be somebody still. It's a long road. We don't encourage people to go that route. However, if you find yourself on that route, you can be encouraged. And that's a tool that I use a lot of times with younger parents. And then that was in May 2018. And then December 2020, I released my first children's book, which is The Girl with the Crooked Smile.
Yes. And I'm curious, as you tell me about this book, how did a children's book come along, and did you foresee that, or did this kind of just naturally happen?
So when I was younger, remember I used to write the short stories all the time, and then I would share it with the class, and I always saw their reaction was one of intrigue and excitement. And even when I read it to the adults for Grandparents' Day. So I always wanted to write one. I actually had started in 2018, but then I got too busy. We say, oh, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. So I just put it on the shelf, literally. I had already done the manuscript, had it edited. Once it got to the point of illustration, I had a hard time finding an illustrator that was like within my budget, could really bring my idea to life. So I was like, let me just put this on hold.
Let me sit on it for a minute.
Come back. Then the world has shut down on us. And there gave me time.
Girl. And they was like, so you said you needed time? You said you needed resources? The world was like, I have a whole bunch of illustrators. They at home too.
They at home. All at home. We're reading more, The kids are at home. So I thought to myself, my goal after doing the 2 books in July 2017, I was like, okay, well, I want to publish a book a year. But then 2019, like I said, I was too busy. So when I sat down and I finally got the illustrations together and everything came together, it's actually about me. You know, I have a crooked smile. When I was younger, I was very insecure about it, especially when I was like in fourth to eighth grade. Because there was a period of time where I wore braces, but my family could not afford to keep
Keep
paying
them
for
up.
them.
Okay.
So I eventually just got them taken off before the actual orthodontic treatment was finished.
Mm-hmm.
So I just grew to learn how to accept it, embrace it. And it's like the first thing people say when they see me, like, oh, I love your
Your
smile.
smile. That's what I was just gonna say. You were insecure about it. I'm thinking back to high school. That your smile was like the light in the room. Like what?
I'm just, with it's always how we see ourselves. Though I was just telling my sister, like, you may see yourself one way and everybody else like, oh, you're so amazing, you're beautiful. And until you believe it, it
It
doesn't
don't
matter as
matter.
much.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use that book as a tool, one, to teach boys and girls how to love themselves the way God created them. There are some affirmations in there that are rooted in the Word of God. So it is a biblical tool as well for kids who may not know God. It's like an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
I also use it as a domestic violence prevention tool because what I realized when I was younger, they would say, oh, the boy like you if he hitting you and teasing you. Like, no, that's not
That's
liking
not
you.
okay. Yeah.
That's
And we've
not liking
normalized
you.
that. We normalize that now.
Yes. And so I give the book to parents that have boys and girls to teach them what is appropriate. If you like someone, this is how you treat them with
Right.
respect. And that is used in the short story form. So that came out December 2020, and that really had and still has a great response with people supporting it, buying multiple copies. I have adults who have no children at all that just read it for themselves and they come back
Yeah.
and tell
Because the
me,
principles are the principles.
yeah, the word of God is true.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. As you can make it simple and only put a few other words on the page, but the
Mhm.
impact is still the same.
It's still the same. And I was just so happy that I had something I could use for my nephew, who is 5 now, my children, who are 16 and 11. But
Holy
it's
Moses.
still something,
And taller than you. But go
I
ahead. That
like
blew
people
my mind,
imitating
y'all.
my sisters. Yeah, I'm like, let me let them believe that. Okay, these are my sisters. But I wanted something that because I never wanted to be the person who just go out saving the world, quote unquote, and then my family is all left behind. I
Yeah.
want to
And
make
they
sure.
like, you're all of this to the world, but at home, you don't do
Yeah,
none of this in practice, none of what you
I
preach.
know
Yeah.
I'm the same Whitney everywhere I am, here at home or when I go out and I do events. So I have something for the whole family unit, whether it has to do with depression or self-esteem and affirmations or teenage pregnancy, overcoming abuse. We just have something, well, it's me and the Lord. We just
Right.
have something for everyone, really. So I
Yeah.
have men who read those books. I never really, how they say, have your target audience. I'm like, well, these books, I felt like everybody could benefit.
Everybody, yeah, everybody can benefit from this. And a lot of times too, especially with projects like yours, where they're largely advocacy based, put them out and the people who it's for will come, because how do we know? We don't know who it's for. Like if we're putting stuff out for the people who are hidden depression, dealing with hidden depression, dealing with hidden this, dealing with things that they haven't talked about, how do we know who they are anyway? And there's no like, oh, they're all between this age and this race and this area. It doesn't
Exactly.
work like that.
No, I'm
It
so
doesn't
glad
work
you
like
said that, Kim, because people that really focus on the avatar, I try to explain, like, depending on what you're working on, like mine is advocacy, that really didn't apply because who
yeah.
I thought I was going to give the book to is some different. Like I said, I had men that come to me. I had a young boy that did a book report and like a whole project surrounding the girl with the crooked smile. We
Wow.
had people doing voice recordings or video recordings of them reading the book. It never gets old. I never take it for granted. it makes me excited. And sometimes I'm like, okay, do I have time for these projects, especially the ones where people come to me and ask?
Exactly. Yeah.
But if it's something that's in alignment with who I am and what I am about, then I'll make the time for it, which is how my next book that's coming out in August.
I'm so glad you said that, because here's the thing, that's the perfect transition for me, because we're going to go to a break and we're going to come back and I want to hop in. You talked about your avatar, right? And now we're talking business, we're talking branding, we're talking entrepreneurship, and me understanding what that is. So let me explain to the people who are listening. Your avatar is like your example target audience for whatever it is that you're doing, right? So typically when you hear people talk about target audiences, they'll say, we target women between the ages of 21 and 39 who make this much money, or who live in this area, or who have this interest, and that sort of thing. And in advocacy, it's really interesting understanding that a lot of the basic business principles are not necessarily the same, because you kind of just have to let the book go where it goes. But even in that, ma'am, you have gained some extremely valuable business tools and expertise along the way. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the book that's coming. I want to talk about PR done right. And they're like, what? We're going to talk about that when we come back. I want to talk about what you learned business wise on this side. And then also, as someone who owns businesses on the advocacy side, as well as just the general business side, talk to me about some of you. I'm going to ask you about a few of the differences between running those different types of businesses, because how you handle money or handle invoices and that sort of thing is not how I'm going to handle it if I'm designing somebody's website. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to cover all of that. So we're going to run to commercial really quick. We're going to pay a couple bills. Yeah. And then we're going to come back and we're going to hop right into that. And we're going to talk about this new book, because I'm excited. I need this new book myself. Okay. So So y'all, thank you for being here. Again, you are listening to New Soul Radio, Gems and Jams with Kim Brio, dropping these life gems and these feel-good jams with our special guest today, Whit Devereaux. We'll be right back.
Hey, you guys. This is Dr. Sherlyn Garrett from Dr. Sherlyn Speaks. I wanted to give you a tidbit of information. If you are in the Chicagoland area and you need counseling, I'm going to provide a resource for you. New Life, New Solutions, and Community Wellness Group. In order to have services, if you have a medical card, you can contact New Life, New Solutions. And if you are a private pay or have private insurance, you can still dial the same number, but it'll be under Community Wellness Group. Our intake coordinator there will be able to help you differentiate which service you would need. You can dial Evelyn Hernandez at 773-308-3362. Again, 773-308-3362. Or Albert Johnson at 773-386-1717. Again, 773-386-1717. That's New Life, New Solutions.
Want more dope content? Check out Soulsay's YouTube by searching Soulsay on at Soulsay Chicago.
WSOL New Soul Radio. This is Kim Brio, and you are listening to Gems and Jams, Life Gems and Feel Good Jams. And we have been here all show with Miss Whit Devereaux, and we have been touching on everything from the advocacy portion of it to understanding her story and how she got to where she was. Quick teaser, guys, for anyone who's just now tuning in. It's a little fun because we went to high school together, so we can tie these things from our past and who we were when we were younger to kind of some of our success stories now, and it's really fun. And before we left with, you were talking a little bit about the business side of the advocacy with the books. And we talked a little bit about your avatar, which is pretty much like your target audience, and understanding that like with advocacy based situations or sometimes with nonprofits, like depending on the project or product or whatever, a lot of the basic business principles are not always the same, right? So tell me a little bit about what you've learned as you've been thrown into this professional journey. Once you self-published that book, you ain't had no choice. You had to hit the ground, you had to market, you had to get it done. So talk to me a little bit about what you learned in business and how that led to the book that's about to come out.
Absolutely. So when I first published, not by my own, the publishing company, like I shared earlier, were the first customers or clients that I had. The consultant that I had from the publishing company reached out to me and was like, hey, do you have a brochure or anything that I could send to incoming clients? And I'm like, really? I didn't know that I was making that much of an impact for other people to want to learn that from me. However, I had invested in this class that taught me how to set up different systems. So I was able to send her a link where the people could book and schedule. But then I also created just a flyer, I think through a Word doc or something. That was my first one. And that way she could use it for other people. But from there, I just was on top of everything. I went into this book tour. It was called Indies in the City through APS International. And through that, I was able to go to different places locally here in Illinois, as well as we went to the Southern Book Festival in Nashville. And we went to, I believe, Indianapolis and Atlanta. We were everywhere. And every time on the stop, I would make sure that I had a sign-up sheet so that I could continue to stay connected to individuals who came to the table, whether they bought something or not. I made sure that I had something that would captivate their attention. And one thing that my mentor from APS International told me is put the book in a people's hand. So when you're talking to them, they have to look at it. They have to stop, command their attention with the product. So I believed in investing in myself. So I had a mentor. I did the coaching program, and literally everything they taught me, I implemented. My coach would always say, applied knowledge is the best. You don't want to just know something, but apply it.
What you know, yeah.
Apply what you know. And I just I didn't spend money on these different services.
Oh, we about to apply all of this because I paid you for this knowledge.
Yes. So I made sure every opportunity that I was presented with, because as people saw me out more opportunities would come.
Right.
Even being at Black Women's Expo, I met AC Green from his show. I met a whole bunch of people, but I remember meeting this lady from a school, and she's like, I have some students. Would you be able to come and talk to them? I'm like, sure. So I ended up being able to go into the school system now.
Yeah.
Just because I was a vendor. So,
and that's what I was going to say. And what people don't understand, that's such a huge opportunity, because here in Chicago with CPS, you have to go through these processes to become a vendor for the schools. But once you're in. So that was a major thing for you.
For sure. And I was not a vendor at all. I was just a willing servant. I look at this as servant leadership. It's like a part of my ministry. When I go out, I'm able to teach people or talk to them and help them in some way, either with their book or whatever it is that they're working to develop. So I was excited that someone would want me to come talk to the students. So I went, but I used everything from that experience. I turned it into a survey so I could see where I needed to improve and get testimonials. And I used those testimonials and I shared it. That brought more opportunities. So it's God just kept opening the door. And when things got too busy for me to still work at that insurance company, he just really put it on my heart that it was time to go. And my supervisor was super supportive. And she's
wow.
Do you think that you could make enough? Do you feel like you're making enough? And at the time, no, I was not making enough to pay.
You were taking a leap of faith.
Baby, My pastor said he was walking on water. I was like, yeah, that was my walk on water moment because
That was your get off the boat. Jesus
for
was like, get off the
real.
boat, and you was like, and step on this water right here.
Exactly. Just like
Okay.
Peter. Yeah, I was like, I was so scared, but at the same time, I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? I have very employable skills.
Yep.
We talked about my educational background and the different type of jobs and careers I had. But I'm like, if I never take the chance on myself, I'll always be wondering, what if?
What
Or
could
I
have
should have
happened?
done.
What if I had just tried?
Let's try. And when she was like, I support because she had bought my book and she was selling it to other people in the office and everything. She's still on my Facebook page to this day, like supporting me and all of that. So having taken that leap of faith, I'm like, I have to go all in. I have to give it everything I've got because I haven't had to go back. I left June 15th, 2018. And I have been in full-time entrepreneurship since then. I haven't had to get anybody's job. I just work for me.
And that ain't that a beautiful feeling, girl?
It is, especially, with the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic,
Yep.
the kids being forced to come back home with me. That was something else. Okay.
I was about to say it was like you went to full-time parent again. Woo.
Yes. They have been home with me since March 2020. Like when everything shut down, I didn't send them back. So home became school, work, the place where I write. Because I still, in the midst of the pandemic, I was writing.
Still putting out product.
Yeah, products and services. So the PR done right really just came from me learning, me doing, and then other opportunities coming and people saying, oh, can you do that for me? They didn't want me to teach them. So I was like, okay, I need to create a service for people who say, hey, I'll pay you and you do it for me.
And you just do it. I don't want you to teach me how to do it. I just want you to do it.
And that's how most of my clients are like, no, I don't want the DIY service or anything like that. They want me to pitch to the media for them. So that's what PR done right is. The public relations piece that I do has to do with me pitching to media. So just like we're here and we're talking with Kim, I have it where I pitch to different media outlets, whether it's TV, radio, podcast, print, all of those publications. And I have templates that I use, and I already have a database saved of all of the contacts that I've acquired.
You've acquired for yourself anyway, right?
From different states, because some of my clients don't live here. That's what is so amazing to me, because you see people online like, oh, nobody supports me. Like, my greatest supporters are people I never met.
That you don't know.
Yes, never met them. They just saw me operating in my gifts. I was obedient to God by stepping out, and He's just blessed us. We haven't wanted or went without anything during this whole time of this 3-year period. Because like I said, I left June 2018, and I don't intend to go back. Okay.
We don't foresee that, ma'am. We don't foresee that. And for people who don't know, they can go to prdoneright.com, correct?
Yes, that will direct them to my Work With Me page. There you'll see some testimonials and my current service offerings. Excuse me, I have on there like a free media strategy session for like 30 minutes. It's free for now. But that's a way to just get the introduction, see if we're a good fit.
Yep.
Because I used to take everybody. Oh,
no. Every client is not your client, girl. If that ain't a lesson.
Yes, I had to learn that. And once I learned, I was like, okay, let me do a process, an intake form. Let's talk. Let's meet on Zoom. And let me see you face to face. Let me see how you can.
This is for both of us.
Yes. I don't want to just say yes to money. That's never been my driving force. Yes, I make money while doing this. However, I don't want just anyone. I want to make sure that the person is in alignment with who I am. My brand can't be
tarnished.
Short-term.
Exactly. And just like our mamas and our grandmamas used to tell us, all money ain't good money, baby.
It ain't.
All money ain't good money. It'll be it could be some good money coming from somewhere else, but all money you don't need to take, because sometimes when you take money, you take more with it.
Stress, complain, and climb. I don't need any of that. But thankfully,
Girl.
On this journey, I've had a whole lot of wonderful people who, like I said, they're from different backgrounds. So whether it's my mentorship program, which is different, that runs under my nonprofit, or it's my clients who are under my for-profit, Whit Devereaux Enterprises. For the most part, they've all been amazing people to work with, like willing to learn, receptive, will do what you ask them to do. Because one thing I want to stress is when you come sign up for PR Done Right, be ready, be available. Because I'm trying to send you out here on these interviews. Where you at? I need to make sure when I set you up, they're on time, that you're ready.
And I'm going to say that, and I'm going to highlight, underline, bold, and italics that. And y'all, I want you to just not think about this for PR. When you come to professionals for their service, understand that there are things that you're going to have to bring to the table in order for them to do what they need to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny you said that, because, girl, transparently, I started this radio station because I was like, I can't do service no more, because y'all gonna drive me crazy. It ain't enough Xanax out here for me right now.
It's a whole emotion for sure.
For real. But I really want business owners and people who are, and especially during a time now where it's kind of in to, go into entrepreneurship and business. And it's a lot harder than we make it look. And when I say we, I mean your friends who have been entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship takes a certain level of insanity.
Yes, girl.
It takes a certain level of insanity, because even if we think about the analogy you just used, there's a certain amount of faith that has to be had when Jesus said, get off the boat, and you and walk on this water. There's a certain level of faith that you have to have. So I do think that a lot of these businesses that are being started right now may not necessarily last. And that's not a diss to the business thing, but it has to be a calling. But y'all, when y'all go to these service professionals, please be prepared and work with them.
Yes.
Because if we're going to do it all for you, then we may as well just run your business for you.
Exactly. And that's
what we're going to do.
Come on now. If I had to do it all,
I might as well just run it. At this point, I just have a business that does that. You know what I mean? And I needed people to hear that. So this is the perfect time for me to ask you to go into the new book, because this new book is a different angle than people are used to your books being about the advocacy. Talk to me about this new book and how you're helping people now.
Yeah, this again was another proposition because people saw me doing my thing. They saw me doing PR. They saw me writing books. So I got a direct message on Facebook saying, hey, if you've been added to this group, it's because we recognize that you have been outstanding in branding, marketing, social media. That's the initial introduction. I was like, do I want to do another anthology or another group project, or do I want to focus on another solo book? So I prayed about it. I took my time. I didn't give an answer right away. That's literally how I do business. Before I say yes, I wait till I have peace about it, and then I'll proceed. So when we had our first session to meet and greet, because all of these people are not here in Illinois. I'm the only person here in Illinois. It's 3 other authors, and then we have a founder. So this will be good because it's coming out soon, and they haven't fully announced it. But hey, if y'all follow me, I'm going to tell y'all because I need y'all to get the book. So Blacks in Nonprofits is like the largest nonprofit group on Facebook. It's like 22,000 people in there. And everybody is a Black owned or Black led nonprofit leader. So they wanted something that would follow up to the book that they had about securing grants, to let people know how important it was for a nonprofit to also have branding, social media presence, and marketing. So when we got on the call, I'm like, hey, I have a specific niche. Mine is for PR. I'm making sure that I am securing media and increasing your visibility so that people can, just like me, see you doing your thing and give you
And
more
then say, I can
opportunity.
get behind that.
Yes. So they're like, ooh, none of us know how to do that. All of them knew how to do the other topics,
That's
branding.
how you know it was put together purposely. Hey, Lord.
Yeah,
Okay.
to be looking out. And I love it because they're also faith-based leaders as well. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. In August, we will be, so it's August now. It's going to be August 26th, I believe, is when they're going to make the official announcement. But you all are getting it first. And the book is literally
Eh.
called Blacks and Nonprofits, Branding, Social Media, and Marketing. My chapter is PR Done Right. It's the first chapter, y'all, so you can't miss me.
You look, you can't miss it. If you pick up the book, you're going to read mine.
Literally, I'm giving samples of media pitches and press releases that I have
Wow.
actually done that you
Wow.
can literally use as a blueprint for you to be able to read the book and implement these things right away. Of course, you edit it to match what it is that you're announcing or what you have to offer. But I wanted people, so there are some people who can't afford my services. So you can
Right.
get, but then there are other people, you get the book and the service. You know, it's something that you can use right away. All of my books are set up like that. I want it to be like you're reading, you're having an experience, but then you leave with something that you can actually use
And you can operate differently starting immediately.
immediately.
I'm so excited because I didn't even realize that the book was for nonprofits. So this ties perfectly into, I've been gearing up for this question, and this is going to be my last big section of questions or question for this interview. And I will say on air, I really want you to come back. So I would love for you to be back.
I love
Um,
it, and I'll be back.
I want to know, I want you to talk to me a little bit about, we touched on this earlier. I want you to talk to me a little bit about understanding how business is done different. The words I used earlier was on the advocacy side, but I think that the way that you're saying it now and putting it together now, the nonprofit side, the way that business is done there is slightly different than how business is done for typical, B2B business services. I do graphic design, web, that sort of, it's a different thing. It's a different beast. So talk to me a little bit about some of the differences that you see in business and how you have to operate with your nonprofit and your for-profit.
Absolutely. So I think a big misconception that some people have with a nonprofit is like, I own the nonprofit. I don't. It's a public entity. I founded it, but I have a board. And those board members, they help me to make decisions. I have to present things to them that I want to do with the nonprofit and get their approval, their vote. I can't just say, oh, like in my for-profit, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to do
I'm
it.
just going to go do it.
Nope. I have to run it by them. And I have some amazing board members who, again, only me and one other person are here in Illinois because God has done a global thing with my
Okay.
ministry.
Look, even as you say it, and you guys, you guys can't see us, but we can see each other. But even as you say it, and I look at you, you every time you say that you have people everywhere, you're dumbfounded by yourself. You're almost like,
I
you got
can't believe
people
it.
everywhere.
Everywhere. With that nonprofit. So the way that God gave me the vision, because people kept asking for help. They say, I know someone. And a lot of times it wasn't really someone that they knew, it was them. And they needed a safe space. And we spend a lot of time online. So he gave it to me as a hybrid program. Every month we have a monthly masterclass, and it's tied into something that he gives me literally. And then I teach them, and then they're able to go and implement. But then I also have biannual meetups face to face where we can do something, usually in October, because that's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and
Right.
April, because that's Sexual Assault Awareness and Child Abuse Prevention Month. So I try to make sure that those are covered with us coming in, but it's not your typical information session. I always turn it into a celebration because we made it, and I
Yeah.
told everybody, I say, the Lord got me out of that. And I'm just keeping a promise to him. I said, if you get me out of this, you deliver me, I'm gonna make sure everybody know about it. And I don't like boring stuff. Like you said, I used to be the life of the party. Like I
Yeah.
want to have a good
There's
time.
no way. That's why I was like, you being buttoned up. Yeah, nah.
I have to have a celebration. So I always make sure to highlight a survivor. And these events are different because one, with me having the 501c3 status as the nonprofit entity, it allows for me to get different grant opportunities, different sponsors, basically money I don't have to pay back. But I
Or
make
tax
sure,
exemption, that sort of thing.
yes, tax exemption. And I've gotten so many free things that I think a lot of people don't know about. So I even dropped some of that into the book too. Because I was like, even though I'm talking about PR, all of this ties in when you're trying to get sponsors for events or publicity for something that you're doing with your nonprofit. You're able to get it from that 501c3 status alone because it's a
Right.
tax write-off for-profit businesses. At the end of the year, they're able to say, hey, I gave back to Not By My Own Community, and I give them a tax exemption letter, and they're able to use that on their write-off. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship, which is what I talk about a lot in the PR Done Right section too. Whenever you're trying to work with somebody, it needs to be mutually beneficial.
Right.
Don't come in there just trying to get. What can you give? What can you bring? What can you offer? So
We gonna highlight, bold, underline, and italics that one again too, girl. You better preach to the people today.
no, we got to let them know it has to be mutually beneficial because then more people will see what you're doing and they'll want to be connected and support the mission of the nonprofit because the nonprofit always has a mission, a why, and you'll need that why when things get tough or you don't feel like keep on going. You need to remember your why and your mission.
Right. And that's what regular for-profit business too. Lord.
Yes, that's and then with my for-profit, so initially, remember, I was just gonna work at the insurance company and write my book. So I didn't even have a whole idea about creating this full service. However, I've been able to make sure that I've gotten my certifications. Every year I have a CPA who looks over my stuff to make sure that I am in alignment because I don't want to mess anything up doing it myself.
Exactly.
So I make sure that I run it past my CPA. She puts it in so that we are a legally ran business. I don't want to do anything that's bootleg. I want to make sure
Exactly.
that everything is in order for sure.
Especially when you're helping, it would be like one thing for a for-profit, yeah, that's one thing. But when what you're doing is helping other people, I would hate for you not to be able to help or have the resources to help because it's something we did wrong.
Exactly. So I make sure that's why the board is so important. I have the treasurer who operates strongly in her role, my secretary, and then I have 2 board members. And everybody is pretty supportive with fundraising. They're always spreading the word. We're all either indirectly or directly connected to domestic violence. So that makes it easier for them to hold the interest of being
Have a personal accountability to that role.
For sure, because I've also heard like, oh, I'm a one-man show. Like you cannot do this nonprofit world. You cannot do that by yourself.
You can't do you will end up in the hospital.
Yeah. But what happens when you're trying to apply for things and you don't have a fully operable board, then you're not a nonprofit. It's not a nonprofit. You have to have your board. And it depends on where you are, like what state you're in, or how many members you have to have. However, you want to make sure, again, you check everything off legally and accounting wise with both. for and nonprofit. I keep that account separate. I don't mix money at all.
Exactly.
It's gotta be separate. And with the for-profit, I have a little bit more leeway because it's my business. Again, the nonprofit does not belong to me. It's a public entity. I just founded it. So with
the for-profit, you can get a product idea in the middle of the night, pick up your computer, do it, and put it up.
Yeah. I set the price. I'm done. All that money, that's mine. I don't have to worry about, oh, this money is for this. And no, this is my money.
You put that in that account, the one right there, that one.
And I do have a virtual assistant because I believe that you can only go so far alone. I always talk about partnership, and partnership takes the vision further. I can have a great idea, but I am a mother, like I'm a daughter. I
are one person.
Yes, it's just me. So I have learned the benefit of delegation. Mm-hmm. So the virtual assistant has been a big blessing to PR Done Right because like right now, this week, I'm preparing for the kids going back to school. She's doing the pitches. She's revising the media templates, uploading things for events. Because we have 2 major events happening this Saturday for 2 different clients. Same day.
You have I'm also booked and busy.
Yes, you have to have people who you can trust that will be able to take on your projects to allow you to breathe and to be able to balance the other aspects of your life.
And I'm going to add one more caveat, and that operate at your level of excellence. Because even as you say that, I think about the fact that you have to have complete faith that the things that she puts out are going to be put out in a manner that are going to represent you and the brand correctly. So that is so big. I don't even know how we covered all of this in one conversation.
I know we did.
But this has been wonderful. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming because I wanted to touch on the advocacy portion of it, of course, for domestic violence survivors, people who deal with mental health issues and that sort of thing, because we have those things in common. But what I'm so excited about that I didn't expect, I wanted, but I didn't expect, was for us to definitely have an in-depth business conversation as well, because bluntly, Black business, right, can be, I'm just going to use my terms, we can be a little chitlin circus sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know no other way to say it. We can be a little pull this together, tie this together, and just makeshift this and make it happen. And I'm all for and I'm a supporter of get it together and get it done. So sometimes I do understand you kind of just have to take the pieces that you have. But I believe that there's a certain level of importance to operating in excellency.
Amen. Yeah.
And what I admired about watching your journey is that you operated in excellency. And I could step back and say, see, because again, we've known each other for so long. I'm like, I know she don't know how to do graphic design. That means that she took the time to go to the resources to get what she needed so that it could be done right. Yeah. Wow. Pun intended, PR done right. Right. Yeah. But I'm grateful for that because I wanted people to kind of dig in and understand the mindset of someone who is efficient and operates in excellency, because we have so many things that our Black community does need. And there's a place for all, however many Black nonprofits that we have, there's a place for them. But like you said, if we can't operate in efficiency, we can't even get to the goal of having it done because we can't even operate correctly. And I just, the reason I think that a large part of the reason that your message is received so well is because your message is sent in a professional and purposeful manner. No one is ever going to come to your page and be like, oh, somebody threw some stuff up and made this in their phone. No,
No.
And not at all. And I love that about your brand. And I'm glad that we could touch on both sides of the coin, because I see you as, of course, an expert in advocacy, but I also see you as an expert in business. And you fell into that.
Yeah.
God was just like, well, I'm going to just teach you everything. So now that you know it.
Yes, thank you, Kim. I feel like everything needs to be done with the spirit of excellence. And I learned that actually through serving at church. That's why I said I look at this as servant leadership. Yes, I'm a leader, but I am serving by offering these products and these services. My books are tools to help you. You know, even the services that I do for you, that's to serve you, to help you get to a different level. You know, a lot of times I'm behind projects. I used to tell my clients, don't tell anybody. Like, I want it to just be all about you. And, you know, they didn't listen. They'd go tell people. But that's how I got more referrals.
Yeah.
Because I was making sure that I was delivering what I would have wanted.
Exactly.
How do I do it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I am so excited and proud just to know you. So let's go through these things. First of all, I'm a rapid fire you for information so you can give it to them. First, tell me where they can find you on all of the social media networks.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Whit Devereaux, which is WhitDevereaux. I'm on Twitter also as Whit_Devereaux. I have TikTok, but you know, I don't know what I'm doing. My daughter put that together.
You sound like me. I'm like, I have the account. It exists. I don't know what to do with it.
I don't know what I'm doing, but literally, if you look up Whit Devereaux, you know how people say, "Ooh, I'm
Google me, baby." No, really, Google her.
Yeah, for real. If you Google me, you'll be able to see all of the social media. I have a LinkedIn page, all of that. But I made sure that everything had Whit Devereaux. I made sure to brand myself in that way, which is
exactly.
My
now, I know PR done right is where they can go to set up a work with you appointment for the PR. Whit Devereaux, is it WhitDevereauxEnterprises.com?
Nope, it's just WhitDevereaux.com.
Devereaux.com. Okay.
Yeah. So WhitDevereaux.com, you'll be able to find all of my books. You'll be able to find testimonials, work with me page, and then also a link to my nonprofit, Not by My Own Community. I made sure to just buy all the domains. So that's a whole nother I
was just about, we are going to have a whole nother series of conversations about entrepreneurship and just a few of the basic principles that I really think are key to success that a lot of people miss, that you did not miss. And it excites me as someone who, like, even before we got on here, like, people know, and I don't know if they think I'm telling the truth or not. I really have been doing business since forever.
Yes, you have.
Since forever, like since we were in high school. But it's good when I see you. Sometimes some people just have it. They just have that it. They have that factor. They have that way that they know that it works. And you have it.
Thank you, girl. I appreciate that.
Yes, y'all, go WhitDevereaux.com. And then real quick, Not by My Own. What's the domain for that?
NotByMyOwn.com.
NotByMyOwn.com for the community. WhitDevereaux.com for everything Whit Devereaux, which you can get all the links to, and then Whit Devereaux on the socials. So I will make sure that all of this is on the website too.
Yes, thank you. And anytime you need me, I'll be here, girl. Just call me.
She said, I'll be here. Look, we could talk again. Is there anything you want to say to the people before we sign off today?
For sure. I believe that if you know your why and you always refer back to that, then you will be good. Because sometimes it'll get tough, whether it's in advocacy or for profit, but remembering your why will help you to keep going.
Yeah. I underline, highlight, italics, bold. That one is
exclamation points. Yeah.
900 of them. Thank you so much for doing this interview, for being so vulnerable, for sharing the amount of information that you shared. I don't take it for granted. And I pride myself on putting content out that makes you think and that grows you. And I have no doubt that after listening to your interview, they are not leaving the way that they came.
Amen.
So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, y'all. We will see you next time. I'm going to play a little bit more music for you before we get up out of here. And then make sure that you are here this coming Thursday, where I will be sitting down again with Dr. Sherilyn Garrett. And y'all, we're going to talk about a very specific type of toxic person this Thursday, guys. We're going to talk about the person who recognizes their negative traits in everyone else, but doesn't recognize them in themselves, y'all. I know we all know those people. So Dr. Garrett and I will be digging into that on next Thursday. Well, this Thursday, rather. So come back here Thursday, 6 o'clock, same time, same place. This is newsoulradio.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Suffering in silence doesn't have to be your reality. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime. But you can get out. The Slip Out app was designed to give victims and survivors of domestic violence useful yet practical tips, advice, and information on how to leave, how to heal, and how to prevent future abuse. Download the Slip Out app for free on Google Play or the Apple App Store. There is a way out.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see. Depression won't show up on an eye chart, and you won't find PTSD by looking at a thermometer. Sorting out a mental health concern takes professional diagnosis and treatment. Anxiety won't just go away under a bandage. If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, call 1-800-662-HELP for free and confidential information and treatment referral. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
Starting a business? Grab Kim Brio's free brand identity checklist to remove the chaos around DIY in your brand. Get it free at kimbrio.com/checklist. That's Kim Brio. BRIO.com/checklist.
This is an American Red Cross blood donation alert. The Red Cross is facing a severe blood shortage and is urging eligible donors of all types to give now and help avoid delays in life-saving medical care for patients this summer. More donations are needed to replenish the blood supply and help address the extraordinary blood needs of hospitals and patients right now. Be a hero to a patient in need. Use the Blood Donor app. Visit redcrossblood.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS to make an appointment to help save lives.
This podcast contains excerpts from New Soul Radio shows. For the full listening experience with music, visit newsoulradio.com. That's NUSOL radio.com.